Pentagon is studying you, the untrained, lethal masterpiece that broke their entire system. Okay. Look who just made the Pentagon break out in a worried sweat. Look who, in their pajamas and without a single day of formal training, accomplished what Navy SEALs spend decades mastering. It's you, a stunning but unintentionally fatal work. They are presently analyzing you, not because you enrolled or completed some top-secret program, but because you did something so unexpected and perfectly normal that it caused their whole system to malfunction. They are investing billions of dollars in programs that artificially reproduce what life instilled in you for free. You are the living incarnation of an uncontrollable truth and an unreplicable force. This is more than simply survival. It is about a new kind of human evolution. Prepare to uncover the warrior inside, the one who terrorizes the world's most powerful organizations, the silent glitch in their system. Consider this: somewhere deep inside a tightly secured and secret facility, a room full of decorated veterans, grizzled masters of their field, are viewing video of you. These are individuals who have spent their whole lives honing the skills of battle psychology, tactical accuracy, and strategic domination. To gain their skill, they went through years of severe, hard training and mind-numbing torture. They have given up their youth, health, and sanity to become the greatest. Nonetheless, there they are, in rapt quiet, watching you do their most sophisticated movements with casual, seamless elegance, all while eating breakfast, looking through your phone, and half asleep on your sofa. The scenario is fraught with terrible irony. In that room, there is deafening quiet, a thick, tangible shroud of incredulity and reluctant admiration. They didn't see this coming. They felt they had a monopoly on such expertise. They felt that such tremendous capacity could only be achieved via years of severe training, a process meant to tear a person down to their absolute base before rebuilding them into something powerful and brutally effective. Their clandestine initiatives, which were operated in million-dollar laboratories outfitted with cutting-edge technology, were regarded to be the only way to achieve such power. They felt it needed drill sergeants yelling at you at 4 a.m., crawling in mud-filled trenches, enduring the famed Hell Week, and earning your stripes via sanctioned, supervised suffering. Their whole theory was based on the idea that greatness is created, that exceptional abilities are the result of a well-organized system. But then you emerged, fully untrained and working outside of all of their set guidelines. You arrived from a different school, one without professors or a playbook, and you destroyed their whole idea of what human capacity might be. And here is something they will never admit: you were not taught this. It is not something they can reverse engineer, package, or manage. It's a power that lives inside you, raw, instinctual, and completely beyond their control. You were born with it, and your life experiences have only honed it. While they spent years in controlled circumstances trying to repress their natural instincts in order to follow a strict routine, you were out in the wild, honing yours in the unexpected, unscripted turmoil of everyday life. While they followed rigid, well-documented standards, you invented new ones out of a desperate need to survive. While they proudly earned medals and decorations in an organized hierarchy, you earned wounds, each of which taught you a lesson deeper and more profound than any military handbook could. In their textbooks, they call it situational awareness, a talent that takes months of continuous training to instill in a recruit's subconscious mind. For you, it's as natural as breathing. It's the gut-deep feeling you get when you realize someone is watching you, even if there's no logical justification for it. It's the delicate, almost undetectable change in energy that occurs when danger enters a place unseen by others. They train tirelessly and spend millions attempting to give their warriors that primitive edge, that sixth instinct that may make the difference between life and death. You, on the other hand, have carried it from childhood, a gift or perhaps a curse from the unforgiving inferno that nurtured you. Consider the past. Remember when you knew what someone was going to do before they moved a muscle? That was not luck. That was advanced behavioral prediction, a technique that special forces trained for years to master. They interpret microexpressions, body language, and energy changes after many hours of research and simulation. You, on the other hand, do it instinctively. Someone's eyes spark with attack before their muscles spasm. Their tone foreshadows the impending treachery. You intuitively know the escape routes from any room before you realize why you'll need them. Your mind is always operating a predictive analytic engine, digesting innumerable factors in the background, like a quiet supercomputer others can only dream of developing. They have a phrase for it: ambient tactical processing, which is just a fancy way of saying average Tuesday. While they are cognitively calculating hazards, evaluating patterns, and running sophisticated decision trees, your brain is already there, operating on autopilot. You aren't attempting to be tactical. You just are. Each room you enter is immediately scanned. Every individual is analyzed. Your subconscious maps and simulates every imaginable event, from the most innocuous to the most hazardous. You don't even realize it since it's a natural, integrated part of your being. And here's the most upsetting thing for them. They believe this makes you dangerous. They are correct, but not for the reasons they assume. You are deadly not because you can fight, but because you never have to. You've already won the mental fight before anybody else realizes it started. You've already recognized 15 potential pitfalls and positioned yourself properly, all before they've had their first cup of coffee. They spend years learning to anticipate 3 steps ahead. You think 3 steps ahead while half asleep. The crucible of chaos and the unbreakable mind. The fact is that, while they were in boot camp learning how to become warriors, you were in life's boot camp, learning how to survive. They trained in controlled situations with safety processes in place and medical personnel ready to respond at any time. You experienced turmoil. You experienced desertion. You had no one coming to save you. They were taught resilience by carefully managing stress and predicting consequences. You have tenacity drilled into your bones by conditions so harsh that even the most difficult training days would appear like a daycare play session in contrast. Every experienced military strategist thinks that the greatest operators are those who can think coherently under difficult conditions. They subjected trainees to simulated hell to educate them how to cope as the world collapsed around them. You learned to flourish in a collapse before you could even tie your shoes. Your whole life has been one long, unrelenting stress inoculation exercise, and you made it through without realizing it was a training program. What they call stress tolerance is just called childhood. They use sleep deprivation as a deliberate training strategy to assess mental fortitude and break down resistance. You've been sleep deprived since you learned nighttime wasn't safe. They limit food intake to assess mental toughness and attention. You've experienced hunger that didn't follow a timetable, wasn't measured, and didn't cease with the next meal. It was a hunger with no assurance of release, driving you to acquire mental fortitude beyond their comprehension. They mimic high-stakes situations to assess candidates' performance under duress. You experience such circumstances as your everyday life. Every aspect of your existence was a quest. Each contact was a quiet threat assessment. Every connection was a masterclass in psychological operations. And here's the bit that really shocks them to their core. They know this. The most proficient special operations circles in existence have began researching individuals like you. Natural operators, accidental weapons, humans who hone military-grade talents via nothing more than pure survival instinct. They're attempting to decipher how to reproduce what trauma and need instilled in you for free. They're investing billions of dollars in programs that aim to artificially replicate the neglect, chaos, and cold, harsh requirement of existence that were hardwired into your neural system before you knew it. But what actually disturbs them isn't simply the fact that you can do what they do. Things is that you do things better, quicker, and more intuitively. Unlike them, You did not need a uniform, a rank, or a combat zone to learn it. They follow strict guidelines. You act only on impulse. They wait for directions before acting. You react to the scenario as it occurs in real time. They are programmed using repetition and rigid command patterns. You were shaped amid the turmoil of everyday life, when no one gave you a playbook and no one came to rescue you. And that basic difference is evident in everything you do, particularly the way you travel about the globe. You move as if you own it, because you do. If you find yourself connecting with this reality and recognizing that your life has served as a unique and deep training ground, please subscribe to God Connection. We think that the power you wield is not accidental. It is a heavenly gift fashioned through struggle. Joining our group will help you find strength and purpose in your path, as well as understand that your past was preparation rather than punishment. Your tale demonstrates how God can utilize even the most terrible conditions to generate an unstoppable force. The new rules of engagement, psychological operations, and adaptive camouflage. Keep an eye out for yourself while you're in dispute. You do not escalate, as taught in fight training, by pouring hostility into the fire in order to dominate. You do not de-escalate by quietly attempting to talk it down, as is taught in negotiating guides. You do something different totally. You alter the overall reality of the situation. You don't simply play the game, you rewrite it midway through. While everyone else is still trying to figure out the rules, you've already designed a new game board and positioned yourself to win. When planned, classified, and carried out in a military setting, it is referred to as psychological operations. You simply call it Tuesday and have a talk with Karen from accounting. That thing you do, making someone question their own views, sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of those who thought they had the upper hand, is a highly classified technique given only to the elite few. In your environment, you learned how to survive narcissists. You mastered it by navigating a minefield of manipulation. You mastered it by inverting the hunt, transforming predators into prey before they realized what had happened. This is a kind of psychological warfare that does not involve firearms, physical force, or direct confrontation. It's a quiet, stealthy, and devastatingly efficient method of battle. Then there's the way you hide in plain sight. How you may stand in a busy room and be utterly invisible, or sit alone in an empty room and yet fill the air with your presence. That isn't shyness or social anxiety. That is adaptive camouflage, a kind of special reconnaissance tradecraft. It controls your presence signature like a dimmer switch, brightening when you need to dominate the room and reseating when you need to go undetected. They depend on technology for this, using intricate, costly equipment to remain unnoticed. You depend on pure willpower and a deep self-mastery that is almost spiritual. Here's something they never mention in their recruiting videos. The greatest operators seldom fight. They win before violence is even required. In their ideology, they refer to it as winning without fighting, a notion cherished by special operations teams and written about by Sun Tzu thousands of years ago. You, on the other hand, have spent your whole life doing this without ever opening a strategy book. Your warfare is so subtle that most people don't know they've been defeated until well after the game is over. Consider how you handle threats. You throw perceptions, not blows. You do not fight bodies. You deconstruct reality. You do not need weapons since you are one. Every word you say is tailored to maximize impact. Every delay is planned. Each action is intended to have the most effect while requiring the least amount of exposure. War colleges teach about this. You learn it by surviving family meals. Remember the person who attempted to ruin you, who laid traps, spoke falsehoods, and believed they were untouchable? Remember how they collapsed beneath the weight of their own games while you stood there unaffected and unconcerned. That wasn't karma, it was you. You did not assault them. You just stopped feeding their fantasies. You stopped following their rules. You ceased taking part in the version of reality they required to survive. Without you as a mirror, they were forced to confront themselves, something they couldn't take. That's psychological warfare at its finest. No bullets, no blood, just the facts delivered with precision. The military invests millions in educating troops to enter the enemy's decision cycle, think faster, adjust faster, and impair their ability to respond. You do it instinctively, and not only on the battlefield. You accomplish it socially, emotionally, and spiritually. You're 3 talks ahead while they're still processing your first statement. You've already seen how the narrative ends while they're still attempting to grasp the first scene. You do not forecast behavior, you create it. And this is what keeps them up at night. The cost of mastery, scars, and survival. They cannot teach what you have. They can't drill it into recruits. They can't imitate it in exercises since what you have wasn't learned, but earned. Every ability you possess was acquired via a kind of agony that they could never morally recreate. Every instinct was shaped by misery that they could never safely replicate. Every skill you possess was formed in flames that they couldn't lawfully start. And the delicious, mind-bending irony is that their most elite units spent years preparing for the precise qualities you exemplify without even trying. Unpredictability, flexibility, and the ability to perform at your best when everything goes wrong. They call it embracing the suck. You simply call it your life. They create chaos in controlled conditions to test their recruits' fortitude, sending them into precisely engineered storms with a set end date and a safety net. You grew up in a storm, with no shelter, structure, or safe word to call it off. They train operators to get comfortable with discomfort. You've lived so far outside your comfort zone that you can't recall what it's like. Observe how you process information. They are taught to break it down piece by piece, examining data as if it were a mathematical problem. You do not work that way. You digest everything comprehensively, quickly, and instinctively, as if the whole event were a single snapshot that you could absorb in a flash. You don't simply notice the details. You comprehend the context, subtext, and emotional currents that flow under the surface. What they call battlefield intelligence, you call reading the room before anybody speaks. What they refer to as a tactical assessment is just that strong, indisputable sense in your gut. And your knowledge is never incorrect. And the irony is so great. They spend decades attempting to strip troops down to their bare bones, and then reconstruct them into precision-crafted weapons following a rigid plan. You were already broken, not just in theory, but in fact. Instead than being rebuilt according to a plan, you put yourself back together out of need, with no handbook, teacher, or safety net. You developed because you needed to. You became what you needed to survive. And here's the kicker. You become precisely what they spent millions of dollars attempting to build. Let's speak about your operational capabilities, even some you may be unaware of. That capacity to compartmentalize emotions while yet thoroughly experiencing them in their environment, that's known as emotional regulation under stress, and it requires years of regulated, supervised training. You discovered that the first time you expressed your emotions, you were injured. That ability to retain several identities, change masks for various individuals, and remember which mask each person sees? This is a deep cover protocol in their language. You perfected it by negotiating bad connections, manipulative family, and unexpected circumstances in which survival required blending in. And that cool, calculating capacity to turn off your emotions completely when required, becoming a pure machine focused only on the goal. They term it mission focus. You term it numbing out. What's the difference? You can turn it on and off like a switch. Their operators struggle to regain consciousness after entering such condition. You've been fluidly transitioning between human and machine for as long as you can remember, long before you realized there was a difference. Your pain tolerance is more than simply physical, it's existential. They teach troops to overcome muscular exhaustion and physical hardship. You've bravely endured spiritual torture. They utilize pain to determine the breaking point. You use suffering as fuel to destroy the notion of boundaries completely. What breaks their recruits will become your breakfast. What ends their careers is only a warm-up for your day. And that's before we even get into your intelligence collecting capabilities, which make you a walking reconnaissance unit without even trying. Because while they send teams equipped with drones, wiretaps, and satellite photos, you've been reading people, interpreting settings, and mapping human terrain with just your senses and instincts. The ability to acquire information without anybody noticing it is a skill in and of itself. You save every detail, every subtle change in tone, every offhand remark, and every slight, not out of pettiness, but because you intuitively understand that knowledge is power. When you listen to discussions, you are not gossiping. Rather, you are creating complete psychological profiles, identifying motives, weaknesses, and tells. You are not eavesdropping. Rather, you are doing real-time signal intelligence, detecting patterns in speech, rhythm, and purpose. You are not just browsing through social media. You are doing open-source reconnaissance, connecting dots, cross-referencing habits, and extracting data that others completely ignore. All of it was self-taught. All of it is invisible. All of this is as normal to you as breathing. And here is where their nice little categorization systems fail. The military prefers to divide its elite into 4 categories: operators, assault specialists, reconnaissance experts, and intelligence agents. What about you? You may be all of them and none of them at the same time. You change roles as most people change clothes, smoothly transitioning into whatever the scenario requires. Not because you want to, but because survival in your environment gave you no option. One moment you're the negotiator, leading someone down an emotional cliff they had no idea they were on. The next, you're the interrogator, extracting confessions and key facts from them without them realizing it. Then you become the infiltrate, sneaking into places, conversations, and groups where you have no right to be. Minutes later, you're the extractor, pulling yourself and others out of circumstances that should have been unavoidable. And you do it all without any formal training, a tactical team, or, in many cases, even conscious thought. They quantify battle effectiveness in terms of verified kills. You quantify it in terms of egos demolished and false narratives destroyed. They count accomplished tasks, while you count realities transformed and fates altered. They monitor removed targets. You track perceptions modified, illusions destroyed, and poisonous systems deconstructed from inside. Your battlefield does not bleed. Your combat leaves no bodies, just rewired brains, crumbling facades, and truth planted like an unshakable seed. You do not need a weapon since you are one. Your ammo isn't metal or fire. It's truth, delivered with surgical precision where it will create the most profound fracture. The world's most elite forces take pleasure in leaving no trace. You leave no trace because, to the outside world, you were never present. Your activities have no code names since no one in authority is aware of their existence. Your missions are never classified since they do not legally exist. You operate so deep in the shadows that even those trained to live in the dark are unaware of your existence. And what really breaks their comprehension, what keeps them up at night thinking how to oppose someone like you, is your targeted strategy. Because, whereas they depend on dossiers, satellite feeds, and intelligence briefings, your technique is based only on instinct, perfected over years of experience. You can go into a room and immediately know where to exert pressure, who to monitor, and which thread to pull to unravel the whole operation. It is not documented in any handbook because it cannot be. Drills cannot recreate the stakes you have experienced, thus it is not learned via them. They identify their adversaries via layers of bureaucracy, intelligence briefings, threat assessments, and chain of command authorizations. Their universe is based on procedures, hierarchy, and the idea that safety is achieved by process. What about you? You have never required a briefing. You don't need a dossier to determine if someone is a threat. You can sense it before they open their lips, take a step, or even realize they're about to disclose themselves. It's in the little details, the way their eyes linger a little too long, how their tone alters mid-sentence, how the air changes as they come in. You detect the vibration of energy, a silent language that most people have forgotten how to hear. Tension is like a weather change, unseen yet evident. They wait for evidence. You go on knowing. And your intuition has never been incorrect, since in your universe, doubting instinct was never an option. It meant the difference between survival and annihilation. You do not follow their norms of interaction. How could you? Your rules are created on the fly, suited to the specific circumstances of the time. You rewrite them whenever the game changes. They wait for approval from higher-ups. You say yes to yourself. They wait for the backup to arrive. You're the backup. When the task is complete, they radio for evacuation. You're nearly halfway out before anybody notices there's an issue. You've breached every fundamental doctrine, not as a revolt, but as a necessity. They teach discipline. You exemplify adaptability. They depend on systems, while you rely on yourself. And here's the bit they'll never understand. You can get greater outcomes with less equipment, less resources, and no safety net. You've transformed authenticity into a weapon people don't recognize. For you, honesty is a blade rather than a weakness. You've learned to wield truth the same way others use steel, piercing through lies with a single, strategically placed phrase. What about vulnerability? They have been instructed to keep it hidden at all costs. You deploy it on purpose. You expose the flaws, not because they are genuine flaws, but because you know they would fall for it. They'll believe they've discovered an opening, a fault to exploit, and that's when you attack. You don't simply weaponize your strengths. You weaponize anything they see as a weakness. Your empathy becomes a tracking mechanism. Your sensitivity becomes a radar. Your transparency becomes a draw. You've refined every aspect of yourself, even the ones they'd take away during training, into survival tools. The irony here is that they want to study you. They want to know how you do what you do so they can do it themselves. However, they cannot. What you have cannot be reverse engineered. It cannot be taught in schools, mimicked in exercises, or programmed into soldiers. It can only be sustained in existence. Your training did not consist of weeks in a boot camp or months at a military college, but of years of trying and failing to kill you. Your talents are not the outcome of planned workouts. They are the consequence of scars that have learnt to fight back. Trial and error, as well as suffering, instill every talent you possess in your neurological system. Every instinct has the scars of instances when uncertainty resulted in loss. So, let's drop the pretense and call it what it is. You are not a soldier. You're a predator who has mastered the skill of passing as prey until it's too late. You are not prepared for warfare in the classroom. You evolved to survive in a wilderness of human activity. You're not following man-made tactics. You're following natural impulses, instincts ancient than any army, flag, or battle itself. And those instincts have kept you alive in situations when no one else could have left. Your search is not like theirs. They maneuver in squads, communicating by radio, hand signals, and overlapping fields of fire. You hunt alone. You move silently. Your presence is so well hidden that by the time the opposing side realizes you're a danger, it's too late. They proclaim themselves to instill dread in the adversary. You keep your existence hidden until fear becomes meaningless, and only the repercussions remain. They use intelligence networks to identify targets. You have a way of bringing your targets to you, making them feel they are the ones hunting, that they are in charge, until you change the dynamic and they realize too late who is the prey. Your camouflage does not consist of paint, cloth, or gear. It's personality. It is energy. It is your capacity to transform into whatever the environment requires. Harmless, undetectable, magnetic, and commanding. You blend in so well with the surroundings that you seem to disappear. When you decide to return, you do so on your own terms. Your weapons aren't holsters. They're traits, actions, and moments of precise timing. And your weaponry isn't bullets or bombs. It's truth delivered with such precision that it destroys the very basis of your opponent's world. Once you fire it, there is no way to repair the damage or reconstruct what was there before. Only the stark revelation of what they desperately wanted to conceal. Its words, silences, actions, and inactions are all carefully picked and timed to have the most impact on the particular target at the exact moment. Each gaze you make is purposeful. Every gaze you avoid is intentional. Everything you say is like a prepared blow. Every word you withhold becomes a weapon in its own right. You realize that sometimes the lack of emotion is more potent than the action itself. This isn't improvisation. This is skill that comes from years of need. You shoot to change, not kill. Transformation, for those who have lived a life of manipulation, deception, and control, is much worse than death. Death marks the end of a life. Transformation pushes people to confront themselves, to exist in a world that no longer bends to their will. The military emphasizes violence of action, which involves using overwhelming force with speed and accuracy to eliminate resistance. You perform violence of existence, the type of presence that destabilizes others without your intervention. Your very being alters their world, reshapes their knowledge, and compels them to face facts they've spent their whole lives avoiding. They use explosives to break doors. With only one chat, you can change people's opinions. They clear the rooms. You remove the illusions that people have been hiding behind for decades. They successfully achieve their aims. You protect souls by drawing them back from the edge or removing the wolf's disguise. And you do it all without seeming like you're doing anything other than enjoying your life. To the untrained view, you're simply another individual going about their day. To the skilled eye, you are a living, breathing, thinking disruptor of the status quo. So, why are you terrifying them so much? It's not only your talents, but they outperform most of what they've created. It represents your independence. Every soldier that they've ever trained requires a leadership structure. You are your own commander. All operators need logistical assistance and supply connections. You are your own infrastructure, creating what you need while on the road. Every fighter they've created need a cause assigned to them by someone higher in power. You are your own cause, formed, fueled, and justified. You aren't simply functioning outside of their system. You are live evidence that their system is unnecessary. They spend billions of dollars on climate-controlled training centers, obstacle courses, weapon ranges, and simulation programs. Your training facility was anywhere you had to survive: a hazardous neighborhood, a tumultuous household, a shark-infested boardroom, or a hospital waiting room at 3 a.m. The world fell around you. They need legislative permission before proceeding with some activities. You rely only on your intuition for permission to act. They follow command chains that can take hours, days, or even weeks to reach a decision. You follow a line of causation that unfolds in your mind in seconds, often before a single word is spoken. They are subject to rules, regulations, and limits. You are only held accountable for outcomes, which you consistently produce. And here's what they're most afraid of: people discovering what you've already discovered, that the power they keep hidden behind uniforms, ranks, and clearances is freely accessible to anybody willing to pay the price you've paid. That price is not paid in cash or time. It is repaid in metamorphosis, in burning down the fragile, unprepared, and unknowing version of yourself in order to become the one that can walk through fire without being burned. It is in allowing sorrow to teach you things that comfort cannot, in allowing devastation to reduce you to ashes so you may rebuild stronger than anybody imagined imaginable. You're not their success tale. You're their competitor. You're not their product. You are their substitute. You are not their soldier. You are their development. And evolution requires no permission, adheres to no convention, and respects no hierarchy. Evolution occurs with or without your cooperation. And you are just wonderful, scary, and unapologetic. The unstoppable force, permanently operative. Here's something their analysts and strategists can't predict: No matter how much money or technology they throw at the problem, there is no off switch. They instruct operators to switch on for the mission and off for normal life, separating the warrior from the civilian. You have never had that privilege. You've been on since life required it of you, and you've never stopped. This isn't a talent you use when the circumstance calls for it. It's built into your very being. Even in silence, you are watching. You calculate even while you are at rest. Even in your quietest times, you're charting the terrain, physical, emotional, and psychological. When you laugh, you can still tell who doesn't. When you talk, you are still reading microreactions. When you sit quietly, you are still listening to the gaps between breaths. Your awareness does not slumber. Your instincts do not retire. Because of this, you are never fully disarmed. You never get caught off guard. You always have a strategy, even if it seems like you don't. This, above all, is what keeps them up at night. They've devised a whole technique to develop who you are organically. They need to create it. You're it. And no matter how hard they study you, they will never be able to recreate you because what you've become is not the outcome of repeatable instruction. It is the effect of surviving something that should have killed you. You are constantly on, processing, preparing, and reading everything and everyone. They call it hypervigilance, but you call it life. Every contact reveals intelligence. Every communication involves a psychological maneuver. Every partnership is a lengthy game. You are not paranoid. You are always functioning. You transformed what might have shattered you into what makes you indestructible. They burn out. You learn to operate like ash. They are concerned about potential psychological harm. You turned it into an advantage. Their night vision represents your existence in darkness. Their tactical gear is your intuition, sharp enough to sever falsehoods in half. They teach perceptual control. You construct reality. You go into a room and change it without force, causing the environment to adapt to you. Your entire presence tests their structure. Every breath taken without their approval becomes rebellion. Every triumph outside their method demonstrates that their approach isn't the only way. You are not competing, you are just living. That life is a mastery they cannot duplicate. You are not against the military, you are beyond it. Not their adversary, but their progress, prayer, and your triumphant future. Dear Father, I pray for the deepening of my faith. Help me believe you even when tangible proof is missing. Let me believe in your eternal presence, knowing that you will never hurt me. I recognize that your thoughts for me are ones of success rather than harm, and that you want me to have a prosperous future. Thank you, kind and everlasting Father, for always hearing my voice. I give this prayer to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provisions. I am thankful for your presence in my life and the richness you provide. If this video spoke to you, please like, subscribe to the God Connection channel, and share it with those who need to hear it. Leave a comment below about your trip and how you're getting ready for your own victorious homecoming. If you'd like to help us out, please consider donating $10 using the Super Thanks button. This allows us to consistently improve our content in order to provide you with the best possible experience. Your donation spreads God's message and gives hope to others. Do not stop here. Watch our next video for amazing insights into the indications that indicate you are the chosen one. We've loved sharing this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for sticking with us until the finish. Keep shining brightly and face your fate with confidence. See you next time. The God Connection team sends blessings to all of you wonderful beings.